joint study session meeting to order. Roll call.
Nick Furtek.
Here.
Bill Manasopoulos.
Here.
Rich Setlick.
Here.
Robert Kometz.
Here.
Patty Sims-Simurchik.
Here.
Kim Kroll.
Here.
Wayne Pondinas.
Present.
Dave Westland.
Present. I see Phil has joined also.
Both groups have a quorum.
Okay, item number 3, presentation, Eric Walsh of Baker Tilly and Phil Facenda.
Yes, Facenda.
All right, the floor is yours.
Is Eric with us?
Yes, I am. Bill. I was gonna
Oh, okay. Hey, Eric.
go ahead and start. I'm here.
Okay. So members of the board, what we're talking about tonight is both for the water and for the sewer are rate increases that Eric, I believe, has explained in a prior meeting, which he will review and update. On the water side, there are projects, and in your resolution, go ahead.
Kenneth Gonzalez here.
Oh, Ken, good to see you. On the water side, the resolution, you have resolutions in each case for water and sewer, and on the water side, there is a principal amount of the bonds that will be considered by the town council for first reading at their meeting later this month, middle of next week, for 3 separate projects, which are the SCADA system, the new well house for well number 8 and number 9, and the water main relocations and replacements. And the principal amount is set forth, the not to exceed principal amount of that bond issue is set forth in your resolution. There will be a corresponding rate discussion that goes with that in order to pay for those bonds. And then on the, just as an overview on the sanitary side, there's also, no bonds are contemplated, but capital projects are necessary. And so there's also a corresponding rate increase that Eric will address. I joined a little late. Are we in the water? This is just the study session, correct? So, okay. So as far as the planning calendar goes on the bond side, tonight is really the beginning of the process. The water board would consider the resolution to approve forward to adopt the rate ordinance. Same is true of the sanitary board. Again, these are recommendations. These are necessary steps. The 2 boards do need to make a recommendation this evening in order for the process to continue. And that process would include the additional public steps are the first reading of a bond ordinance and first reading of rate ordinances in front of the town council next week, and then second reading and consideration of approval by the town council at their meeting at the end of April. If it proceeds according to if the financing proceeds according to the planning calendar, the steps after April steps would be the last public steps that would be necessary, and then there would be process including public notice for sale of bonds, and an offering document, an official statement would be prepared by Baker Tilly, and then we would proceed to sell the bonds and close on the bonds. And the preliminary closing date would be early June. So that's the overview of both the financing timetable and the necessary action this evening. So happy to answer any questions on that, or I can turn over to Eric to discuss the rates.
Would it be okay if I went through the?
So, actually, I do have a question.
Sure.
So, could we have the breakdown of, obviously, we know that SCADA is about 1.5. For the well houses, how much we're thinking that's going to cost? And the water main project also? We have those two amounts?
Yeah.
I've got that here in front of me, Phil.
Do you have that handy?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Great.
If everybody can hear me okay, the SCADA project is 1.2 million estimated. That'd be split 600,000 between water, 600,000 between sewer. The new well houses for 8 and 9 are estimated at $5 million. And then the various main replacements and relocations are estimated at 1.5 million.
And my question now, maybe for Wayne, since you're on, we have anything else that we're looking at? When I say near future, I don't mean in the next couple months, but in the next year or so, or any other projects that we might be looking at?
I don't know for sure, but this is Wayne talking. Things happen, Bill, because you know in Cal City that things happen, just like that $1 million for that water main project on 41. That took us by surprise, and the state wants that done, so that's why we're doing that. But I don't see anything else other than that. Maybe some work in the treatment plant, but I'm not sure. And some of that stuff could be smaller amounts, and it won't affect where you have to get a bond.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a clarification, but I think from the sanitary side, the bond isn't, or we're not involved in that?
It's only a water bond, correct?
Okay, thank you, that's it.
If you agree, would it be okay if I start going through the rate report you all have in front of you?
Yes, that's good.
As a refresher, my name's Eric Walsh. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. Been the municipal advisors for the town for several years now. And I was in front of, I think, most of you at a joint session back on January 19th and went through a preliminary study. As Phil started out tonight, I'm going to give an update of that, very high level, and then talk through the rate impact. Not only, obviously, the lion's share of this rate impact, especially on water, is being driven by this project, but also on sewer sanitary with their portion of the SCADA system. There's also a driver of this of just it's been a number of years since there's been a rate adjustments as well, and there's part of that of your growth in St. John has sustained your rates for many, many years, but at some point there also becomes infrastructure when you grow so fast that needs reinvested in as well that's helping drive this. So primarily driven by the project, but there's other factors at play too that are driving the rate needs as well. If you'll turn to page 2 of the presentation that you have in front of you, feedback. What we've done here is we've updated the report that I had back in January. We hadn't closed or didn't have year-end 2020 financial information at that time. So we've updated the left-hand column where you see 2020 actual to show you where you actually ended up in the calendar year. Then we've extrapolated that out for the next 6 years to assume not only rate adjustment, but for the water utility, which is what we're looking at on page 2, the inclusion of the new debt to support the projects that we just went through, as well as some additional potential new hires, other loans that you have outstanding, and then maybe to elaborate on the gentleman's question earlier, there's also built into here, in addition to the bond issue, $400,000 a year for what we call pay-as-you-go capital improvements. So you will have money every year for investment into your system as well. Things that pop up, as Wayne mentioned, as well as with your size of a system and a growing system, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars every year that you're investing into the system anyway. So that is built into your rate adjustment as well. if you look at really kind of the what everyone's interested in the top kind of middle under 2021, we would be talking about a 30% rate adjustment. And I usually don't talk in percentages for the explicit reason that, yes, 30% is a large rate adjustment. I'm not going to deny that. But when you look at it as a dollar impact to what the state uses as an average residential customer, and I'm going to get to this in a second, the state looks at it as 4,000 gallons a month. Now, I know St. John is probably closer to 6,000 to 8,000 for an average residential family of 4, probably closer to 8. It would be double this number. But the state, to compare apples to apples across every community, always looks at 4,000 gallons as a residential and says, how do your rates compare? I'm going to show you a graph on the last page that shows you exactly that. Before that, 4,000 gallon a month customer, their water bill would be going up $3.91. I talked to Beth about a week ago. She pulled some bills. An average family of 4 to 5 is closer to 8,000 gallons a month, so they would see just under an $8 increase on their bill for the water portion only. The other piece that's of interest here, and we try to make this pretty simple just to get it across, is the graph at the bottom. And this is an update. You guys saw this before back in January. The blue line is where your cash reserves are now. The green line is kind of where we want to see you be there or above, or at least trending in that direction. And then the red line is really, okay, if you're getting down to this, there's some trouble going on here, okay? With the rate adjustment that you see and the new projects that you'll be doing, your cash balance, that blue line, will gradually get above kind of where we call what we want your reserves to be, and that's just your cash balances in the bank, kind of your savings account, and we'll stay above that, we estimate, through 2026. This has a modest amount of growth built in, less growth than you guys have been experiencing the last several years, but again, we want to be conservative with that number as well. In terms of what you saw back in January, we talked about an increase at that time to the 4,000 gallon customer, if you remember, of $5.94. So what we're proposing tonight is actually doing more project with a lower rate increase. The rate increase is actually about $2 less than what we talked about at that point in time. The bond issue, as we talked about it earlier, for the three pieces, the SCADA, the well houses, and the main relocations and replacements, that bond issue will be amortized over approximately 17, 18 years. It will be the repayment structure, and it'll be structured around your current debt as well. So this analysis here, if you go to the line item that says debt about the middle of the page and follow that along, you'll see your debt payments are ranging from $600,000 to $800,000 per year.
And you said that was for about 17 years?
The new bonds, the bonds that we're talking about tonight, the water bonds, would be paid off in 17, 18 years, correct? You have, I believe, one or two other debts outstanding as well that pay off during that time period. Now, the other side, and I know we have two boards here tonight, but as you probably all well know, your customers, whether water or sewer, typically just look at their monthly bill, and they don't delineate that much between them. So we want to also look at the other side of the coin, what is the sewer adjustment being recommended. Again, sewer, although it has the SCADA project and other projects as well over the next few years, doesn't have quite to the extent that water does. There is no bond issue being contemplated in the sewage works. Again, it's the same structure on page 3. We have your revenues estimated out for the next 6 years based on 2020 actuals. We have your expenditures, including the debt that's already outstanding. As you know, you guys have some debt already in the sanitary sewer. The rate increase we're talking about under the 2021 column would be a 10% adjustment, or to that 4,000 gallon a month customer, $2.28. Again, if you take a family of 4 or 5, basically double that, they'd be looking at about a $4.50 per month increase. Once again, if you go down to the graph or the chart, with sewer, the cash balances are really staying just below that recommended reserve, but as we get out into 2024, 2025, 2026, you start to see that blue line again creeping back up. Predominantly, that has to do with some of the debt rolling off of the sewage works. If you go down to the line again that we looked at on water, but look at the line that says debt on sewer and follow that along to 2026, you'll see a material drop of a little over $700,000 in your debt structure. So the reason we have a smaller rate adjustment in sewer is, one, you don't have any debt that's being issued that this needs to, or new debt being issued. And two, we really just need to make it through the next 4 years or so. Once we get to 2025, you have a significant drop in your debt service payments that your rates have to support. Again, if you went back to the January 19th report we were looking at a rate increase closer to $6. This is almost half of what we talked about at that time for the sewage works. And finally, what I think is always most helpful, especially to the ratepayers, is the last page on page 4. I pulled many of the surrounding municipalities around St. John. Again, this is for the 4,000 gallon a month customer. Very simple, just double it if you want to think of an 8,000 gallon customer, 4 or 5 person household. Right now, that 4,000 gallon customer, water and sewer, is paying $35.79 per month. After these adjustments, or the proposed adjustments, if adopted by the town council, they'd be paying approximately $6 more than that, just under $42 per month. The state average for communities of similar size to St. John, and this is from northern to southern, eastern to western, pulling all communities, you still would be over $10 below the state average for a comparable community by population. Why we typically look at population and region is because you share a lot of similar characteristics with communities of similar size. Typically, if you're a larger community, you're able to spread your overhead a little bit more. Smaller communities have higher rates. Just to reiterate, as Phil said, the calendar that we are on right now, the water rate adjustment or the water bond issue that we're talking about for the 3 different projects, we cannot issue those bonds without the rate adjustment. We have to, when we go to the market, show that we have the ability to repay that bond issue over the 17, 18-year period. We have to show it's also called bond coverage. That's a buffer basically to the market, or a safety net, if you will. Your rates have to be able to show that as well. We cannot market these bonds without having that rate adjustment to be able to prove that. On the sewer side, again, doesn't have that pressure point, but on the sewage side, if you don't have the 10% increase, you can just look at that blue line that we showed you and drop that down materially over the next 5 years. I think I hit everything. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think, Phil, you hit on the calendar. We're looking at, if everything goes through, the boards and then council, looking for a bond sale, bond pricing in the May timeframe, and a closing when you'd be able to start projects in June. There is, as part of this process, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, there is a public process before the town council. There has to be a public hearing where the public can be seen and heard, ask questions. Has to also occur before the town council can consider this for rate adoption.
Anybody have any questions for him?
Yeah, so with the rates that we're assuming that we're going to get with the bond, what are we repaying back at the end of 17 years on the initial $8.5 million that we're taking out?
Based on the current estimates, I think we're using an interest rate of approximately, what was it? I think we're using an interest rate a little bit under 3%, and I can get you that exact number. If you bear with me, I got to find it here.
Okay.
You're asking for like the interest payment over the 18 years, right?
Yeah, the total that will be.
Yeah, can you give me a few minutes? I can pull that up here real quick for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not a problem.
While Eric's doing that, just one another additional note. There is a necessary step that the projects themselves be approved. That is on the water side. That the 3 projects that we mentioned would be approved officially at a public hearing at the next water board meeting. So the town council is going to be the final step, and there will be a public hearing on the rates, but not a public hearing on the rates before the water board, just recommendation on the rates, but there will be a public hearing at the next water board meeting as is necessary under the statute. So that's just to approve the projects after a public hearing. One other item that, Eric, I don't know if you were going to mention this or not, but there was discussion of I don't know if this body discussed this or not, but one approach you can take with regard to rates is, layering them in. And the reason that this approach was proposed is because, first of all, it's, as Eric mentioned, it's quite a bit below the last time you met and discussed this in January. So the impact is less. The second thing is that sometimes the public looks at it, and regardless of the fact that you layer it in and have it a rate increase in the first year and then you have one in the second year, and you don't take any additional public action, but the public may look at it as if you've now increased the rates twice. So the thought was to just go at one time and one time only on the action.
Thanks, Phil. To answer the question, preliminary, and again, obviously we haven't sold these bonds yet, and it's based on market conditions today. We would be looking at, over that period, paying approximately $2.1 million in interest.
And roughly, if we go with this rate increase that we're proposing, we're looking at how much cash on hand, at the not I shouldn't say cash on hand. What kind of surplus are we looking at year's end? Pretty much every year.
All right,
which we already know.
Which utility or district are you referring to, or are you asking in combination?
Water.
Water. We'd estimate by the end you'd be looking at approximately $4.5 million in cash, and in terms of a buffer over kind of the target, you'd be looking at probably $500,000 to $1 million. Did we just lose them? Oh no. Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
And then in terms of what that buffer would be over your minimum reserves, because keep in mind, I think I talked about this in January, when you issue debt, you're making a promise to the bondholders that you will hold minimum reserves. Now, we don't want you to get close to those minimum reserves, but if you did, we would have issue, obviously, with the bondholders because you're making a legal promise to those. You'd have a buffer over those amounts of approximately $3 million.
I'm sorry. I'm doing this in my car as we're sitting, so bear with me. Okay, we can go on. Keep going.
Was there another question there, or did?
No.
Oh, okay.
You can continue.
Oh. I had some, but you actually kind of covered them between the two of you.
Yes.
And going forward, which some of it came because things just aren't on there anymore. The bonding stuff. Some other things I might be able to get with you, Eric, and or Beth to firm up my understanding, but it doesn't really apply here. So the ones I was looking at, and then I think it was covered early on describing the process. One thing was about that our stuff is advisory only, and mentioned that the town council is actually the one, I guess they need our recommendation, but they are the ones that will actually be, or have the power to set it up and get it going.
Do you want to answer
Correct.
that, Phil? Yep.
Yeah, correct. This is a recommendation to the town council to proceed. As I mentioned, the water board will approve the projects next month officially and technically, but the rate increase and the bond and the issuance of the bonds are at the town council level, and that would happen at the end of April.
On the projects, is that the town council as well?
Yes, they'll approve the projects as well. It's just that there's an interim
Okay.
step.
That's-
Quirky.
I
interim
understand,
step.
that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
I
Yep, they
want to
will.
make sure as far as who actually has the power to commit. We can do all we want here, but if they say no, it's no.
Correct.
Okay,
If the town council says no, it stops.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's probably
Any
it.
questions? And I think you gotta remember too, that the bond, when it's sold, the interest rate could change. It's gonna be subjected to market, right?
No, we will sell this bond as a fixed interest rate for the 18 year period. So what we're using today is based on current market conditions.
But when you sell it, at that point, that's the
It's
interest rate
fixed.
you're gonna lock in.
It's fixed for the entire
Correct.
period. No variable rate, correct.
So it could change on whatever you did your calculations today on.
Yeah, we have, as many of you probably know, as you've either watched mortgage rates or interest rates in your checking or savings account, interest rates have been ticking up about the last 30 days. We have a buffer in here of about 25 to 30 basis points, which is about what we've seen increase in the last 30 days. I would be surprised if we see another jump of that much. Obviously, the Fed actually meets tomorrow and has an announcement on what they're doing with rates as well, so that could play into this. But I think we have enough buffer in there.
Okay,
In our
good.
numbers.
All right, anybody else have any more questions?
No.
All right,
Anybody online have any questions?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you, Eric.
Thank you all.
thank you.
All right, well, if everybody have all the information they need then, as we move into the separate meetings?
Mhm.
All right, then, make a motion to adjourn the study session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Nick Pertek? Here. Bill Manasopoulos?
This is just,
We don't need a roll call.
no, this is just for adjournment.
Yeah, okay. You just say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.